Yesterday I had a lucky find, finding this one. I actually went for size. I went to the store and see what's the biggest box, and one of them must be a Bible, and it was. Here we go. This is not Alcuin's Bible, but something like it. It shows you everything that the new Bible, consisting only of Jerem's translations, must have had. Written on parchment, now we know all that, right? A parchment bound book. You can see very clearly because someone removed the page down. You can see how the binding and the covers were actually added or fixed to the body of the book. It is beautiful, isn't it? We can talk a lot about this, but yes. So it starts with
lovely bunnies.
Yes, but yes, I want to figure out what this is. Ah, yes, okay. So this is, so now the layout and the structure is very similar to what we have seen in the Greek manuscripts, but the texts are different, of course, because this is Latin. So this is introduction, of course. We don't start with the text of the Bible, never. So here it says this is the beginning of the prologue of Jerem to his fellow priest called Paulinus about all the scriptures of the entire Bible. So this is a general introduction to his translation of the Bible addressed to this Paulinus, whom he addresses as my dear brother. And this should be an F. So it says Frater Ambrosius, that was his full name, Ambrosius Paulinus. And this is the beginning. This is his general prologue, introduction to the translation of the entire Bible. And then you can admire the decoration, really. But we are looking at the content for now. So this is the general introduction. 2 columns, beautiful proto-Gothic script. I really like it, actually. This is the end of his general prologue. And here begins the introduction of St. Jerome ad Desiderius. Yes. So this is his reply to the commissioning letter of the Pope to translate the Bible into Latin. And this is probably him holding the letter. And so another introduction. What's this? Now you tell me. Come close. That end is quite empty. So if you want to come over that end. And those who are closer, you can tell me what to expect. List of chapters, and it actually says so. Explicit prefatio, so this is the end of the prologue, and the beginning of the capitula in Libro Genesis, right? So the chapters of the book of Genesis. So the same thing. This is a permanent, long-standing tradition of listing the chapters from basically Dioscorus and Homer. And the next one, what is missing is the author's portrait, because we start with the book
Well,
itself.
you have the author, God.
We will see that it can look different. Well, here is the beginning of Bereshit, which is the Hebrew name of Genesis. We saw how that Bereshit was translated by the different Greek translators as had or something, and which is Genesis. And this should be a large, what letter? I, because it says in the beginning, and it usually represents 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 6 days of the creation in one. So this is like an iconographic summary of what's happening in book 1 of Genesis. So in that sense, this continues the tradition of the hypothesis, the abstract from the Greek tradition. And this is how it goes on. Genesis. I just need to find. This is the book of Kings, Ezekiel, and always, as a rule, we will start with the preface, the prologue of Jerome about this particular about the translation of the particular book. This will be explicitly referred to in prologue. This is the Wisdom of Solomon. What is interesting is that I didn't show it in Codex Sinaiticus. This is the Psalms, and the layout for the Psalms is different because it's poetic text. So here we have 3 columns. In Sinaiticus we have 2 instead of the 4. But it's very cool actually. And this is Carmen Gradum. This is the song for the stairs, which we talked about in the Greek tradition, and there was an explanation of what that means, anavatmos in Greek. But we need to see. This is the Wisdom of Solomon. I want to see the New Testament. I haven't seen it myself, so it will be new. Matthew, the Maccabees. This is the end of the Old Testament. The title will always be up there to help the navigation and orientation. So let's see. I haven't seen this manuscript before because it's carefully boxed, and my boss said that this is very rarely out and it should deserve more attention, so let's give it respect and credit. But so I don't know what to expect now. Let's experience this together. Wow. Looks very odd. So new canon tables, no chapters. It's right into the Gospel of Matthew.
Oh, that looks like 15th or 16th.
Looks like a substitute, indeed. Yeah. And maybe it was so beautiful that just like in the Ethiopian one,
I guess it was just never executed because it has.
But you see, it ends here, so there could have been leaves here.
Yeah.
And it's not. It doesn't begin. Yes, it doesn't begin properly.
Yeah.
Because it starts with Abraham, but it should. Yeah. This is the genealogy of Christ, which should start from Adam. So, yeah, the big revelation is skipped. Actually, we will miss that.
But we have letters in the margin.
We have so we have the chapter number. We will talk about that. So it means that there were probably comparative tables. This is now proper stuff. Yes. So this is Mark. Now nothing is missing. Come closer so you can see the chapters list. Now you know that, right? And it actually retains quite a lot of that tradition. Here you see incipit argumentum in evangelium. So the abstract is here again, hypothesis as they call it in Greek, which is basically a life of the evangelist and the context in which the gospel was written. Then the chapters, which are more or less similar to Ammonius's chapters, which we have seen in the Greek tradition, and they are carefully numbered in the margin, which may indicate that there must have been comparative tables originally, but someone has stolen them, unfortunately. Maybe we should not record this, that they were stolen. Yeah. And this is another beautiful eye for Mark. And shall we see Luke? That's actually really nice. So again, just for the sake of content, this is the end of the Gospel of Mark, and now here begins the abstract of Luke, and then this is a large L saying Luke was of Syrian origin and he was a surgeon and so on. This is his life. The chapters, as we should expect, and the author's portrait in a way, right? So that this should not surprise us in any ways.
And then we have here
the Annunciation, because Luke is the only one who gives an account of the Annunciation. And this is quite cool because we have God the Father sending the angel. No, this is a double Annunciation. The Annunciation to Zechariah and the Annunciation to the Virgin Mary. That's quite beautiful. And I didn't say this is probably the very end of the 12th century. So they say it may be 1200 exactly. And this should probably be it. Let's see John, and then we move forward. Yeah.
Where was it produced?
That's a big question. So they say it's French, but there's a debate because it has been in England for a long time, and there are glosses. And I saw one yesterday, but I couldn't find it now. So there are Middle English glosses in it, and that's why they thought it was of English origin. It was created in England, but there was a doctoral dissertation written not recently, but like 15 years ago, and that argued that this is of French origin. It was written in France and later brought to England and used here. This is John. Again, same thing, in a boringly repetitive way, right? Incipit argumentum, so at the abstract of the Gospel of John with his life, list of chapters, and finally the Gospel itself, saying in principio erat verbum, so that should be a large letter I. Beautiful, isn't it? I really like it. And then the chapters marked on the margin, probably for the Canon tables, but we will look at that in a second. So this is very nice. This is your full Bible, and you saw me unpack this. So that isn't an easy task, I wouldn't. Which is why, again, it's very rare. So Alcuin designed this Bible for the emperor to serve as a master example for further copying, but the transmission was different. So let me just move this thing so that you don't have to move yourselves. I bring this one. So just like in the Greek tradition, the Latin tradition had a similar way of transmitting the Bible in chunks. And of course the most popular, common one is the Gospels, right, for liturgical purposes. And the Gospels in Latin, they used Jerome's translations. That was his first translation. So I just want to show you a piece. Maybe I actually should have shown this together with the others so that we see how they compare. But now you tell me what we see. This is Carolingian, so it's 10th century. It's like mid-900s, 950s. So what is this? Now it's familiar, right? Come over. It works the same way. So it says Canon primus, the first one, in quo quattor concordantur, in which the four are concordantur, so it's not compared, but it's like they agree, the four. And then Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And finally, this becomes legible and digestible for us as well, because you see, Matthew 8 is Mark 2, which is Luke 7, and John, what is it? 10. So you see how it works. But this is luxury at its highest, because it's dyed purple, written in golden ink on purpose, so you can't really go further than this in luxury. And they are different, you see? So the layout of the colors is different on every single page. We should have had this with the others, because this shows the Latin take on the same thing. Yes, so this is still the first one, comparing 4. This is second, comparing 3, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and the numbers, also on purple. Same thing. But I think it's worth going through it because it's beautiful. You see that none of the columns is exactly the same. So they really had a artistic creativity at its highest. And then this is Jerome replying to the Pope, and this is his famous letter, Novum opus me facere cogis, which means you compel me for a new challenge. And I take the challenge, but it will be hard. Yeah, he was right. And this will be his introduction to his translation of the Gospels. And then this is how every single Gospel book in Western Europe will start. And then this is probably not him, I don't think that the origin of this one is known. This is an introduction to the 4 Gospels, saying how many Gospels there are and who wrote Gospels. And it starts plures fuisse qui evangelia scripserunt. So there were many who wrote Gospels, but currently we only have 4. So he lists everything that I listed on my slides about the Gospels and why we have 4 only. This is Jerome's translation of the user guide. Remember, Eusebius to Carpinianus, his fellow bishop, sending his greetings, and the user guide for the comparative tables. And this is the Latin translation of the same thing by Jerome. So when he translated it from the Greek, he translated that too. What is odd is that this is after the things it relates to, but maybe it doesn't matter. It looks fancier like this because it starts with the stunning tables, and then this one is just hidden. Maybe everyone already knew how to use this, so this was just like a tradition. And this is the second part of the user guide. Sciendum quia. So you need to know, before you start using this, you need to know the following, and then they say what it is. And then Matthäus ex Judea, this is, what is this? The life of the evangelist. Now we know how much it is part of the tradition, that Matthew was of Jewish origin and so on. What's next? Now, I need a choir shouting. The chapters of Harmonius, right? Listed, all of them. In a very beautifully written, actually. So what you need to look out for is the uniform tradition of the structure, but how nicely it is adopted to the culture, receiving it. So what's next?
Portrait.
Of course. And that's your evangelist. I don't know why he's at hard work. Why a knife? Why a knife? Why is the knife needed? Cutting not the pages, but the pen, to sharpen the pen as he's going ahead. And this should be an L, because this is the Liber Generationis Jesu Christi. So this is the family tree of the book of the family tree of Jesus Christ. And they designed it. This is a very Western design. You don't have this in Greek or Armenian. This tradition of illustrating and highlighting the first letter in this peculiar way is Western European, and it nicely pairs with the portrait. Whereas in the Oriental so-called tradition, we saw that there's the portrait and some kind of a decoration with the title of the text, which is in a way more archaic because it goes back to the classical tradition of highlighting the title. And this one may look like an innovation. And then the text finally. And this is what a gospel book looks like. So instead of huge Bible like this, they had the gospel book, which is very common. And the gospel book in Carolingian Empire will look like this, consisting entirely of Jerome's translations of the Gospels, some and not the Old Latin. And this should probably be the same for, yes, oh very nice, for the other Gospels. But I haven't seen them, to be honest. So again, this is the abstract for Luke. And this is this the chapters?
Yeah, these are chapters.
The end of the chapters, indeed. They are quite detailed, so I wasn't expecting this long chapter titles. And then the author's portrait. Very nice.
And you quite often have that the 4 evangelists do kind of actions that follow each other. So the first one will sharpen the quill, and now Mark is dipping his quill into the inkhorn.
But we need Luke. This will be Mark. This is again Mark.
Also, sorry.
Mark. This is his life. So the abstract, and this is the chapters. You see how uniform it is. Always the same as a rule. And there we are.
Oh yeah, so he's holding down the page with a knife because parchment is springy.
Just like
So
this.
yeah, it wants to go back to its shape and is ruling the pages probably.
Yes. And that's we have Luke. Do you want to see John or shall we go?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do we expect?
Live.
The life, first the abstract and the life. Hic est Ioannis Evangelius. This is John the Evangelist, one of the 12, who was always a virgin from his very selection by Christ. Yeah. Chapters. Yes. And the author's portrait.
So finally writing.
And again, purple. So that's and it's especially rare on the West because that special snail from whose blood you need to create the dye to create purple color is from Eastern origin. You can find it in the Eastern Mediterranean only, and so there are more purple manuscripts from the South and the East, and it's very, very expensive for the West. So they can't afford having entire pages. That sometimes they do, but usually they have a selected area which is painted purple, but in the East they can have the entire manuscript painted purple, every single parchment page, and written in golden ink, which is sort of an icon of the incarnation of Christ, because the red is the human flesh with blood and everything else, in which the divine word is written in golden ink. So this is basically the incarnated word, which the gospel book actually is in a way. And so that it has a
The word made
symbolism
flesh or on flesh.
on flesh. And there are chants venerating the Virgin Mary, saying that she is the book in which the divine word was written by the Father in golden letters, which we just need to put this back. Yes, so that's the gospel book in its Western transformation. And two more things to go to see. One is that one. And I will not say anything, I promise, but you will. Tell me what's happening. Because now the format should look familiar. What's happening on the page?
It's commentary between the lines and on this section here in this column.
Yeah, or we can just... Have we seen this before? Did we see this before, the layout?
It's similar to the Iliad edition.
There we go. Or the Psalms in Greek, which I tried to show, but it was quite tiny. I think you were closer. Yeah. And it is the same idea, right? Having the main text, the biblical text, in the middle, written in larger letters, and the commentary taken from other books, nicely attached to the relevant bits. And exactly as you spotted, interlinear glosses as well. So between the lines, which are usually the grammatical explanations for the wording itself, and the rest is coming is about the content and the theological interpretation of the passages. And this thing is quite important, as I said before, because this is the birthplace of the vernacular translations of the Bible. Because if you want to explain the complicated Latin wording, you can do it in Latin, but the best and easiest and most useful explanation is in your own language. So it often happens quite early in the 9th century that you have an old High German gloss, right, hidden between the glosses to explain a particularly hard wording. And this is the Western take on the marginal commentary of the Bible, which comes from the scholia tradition of the classical tradition. I do not know to what extent they were aware of that when they created this. I never heard anyone talking about that, actually. It would be an interesting idea, but the transmitter between the Eastern Greek classical tradition and this could be the legal texts, which are quite old, and the digest of Justinian, the law book, the 6th century law book of Justinian, was often explained, because the law needs interpretation every single time you want to apply it. And from very early on, it had the interpretation on the margin like this. And that might have been influenced by classical tradition, and that was seen and used in Western Europe extensively. But this gloss is Anselm of Laud, so it's the 12th century. He's the initiator of this idea to use the marginal commentary for the scripture. And then he started with the Gospels, and it's slightly and slowly expanded to the entire Bible. And this is a late 12th century copy of the entire Bible, but this is the book of Exodus only. And then later on it was printed. That was a masterpiece of printing, actually, to print this. Can you imagine? With what's the word? The movable type, which they need to carve. And then to create such a complicated page in print, that was an incredible challenge, but they coped really well. And there are various layers of glosses around that one, but we shouldn't go that far, because the last item, this was needed for this, because the commentary was heavily used in university education, even in Oxford. But it was invented in France, and the Sorbonne, the Paris University, was the sort of the torchbearer of this tradition. So the scriptures and the Bible was used very heavily in university education. But this format is not ideal to be your university notebook. I think it's understandable, right? This one, because this one is at least one volume, the whole thing. But the precious explanations from the Holy Fathers, they fill the page very nicely and beautifully, but this is only one book of the Bible. So for the whole thing, you needed like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 volumes of this. So that is very complicated for a university scenario. And in Paris, they came up with the idea that, okay, let's change the layout completely and do the Bible, the whole thing, like this. So they refined the technique. It's the wrong way around. They refined the technique to make the parchment thinner, super thin. This parchment is very thick, sometimes rough, and that's why the volumes are big and fat. So they refined the technique, and there is a very thin parchment now. You can touch this, how thin and fine, almost subtle the parchment is. And they changed the letters, the writing style. This is new, to something that is extra small, and then you can squeeze the whole thing in one volume. They kept everything from here, but in a new format. And this became the University Bible, which we call the Paris Bible, an iconic creation of the 13th century, where you have the entire Bible in one pocket-size volume. And this has become an industry in medieval Paris. It was very popular, and they started creating these not only in Paris, but also we have Oxford Bibles, we have German examples created in Germany.
Yeah, small size, yeah.
And so the layout is the same. Jerome's prologue to the general prologue to the translation of the entire Bible into Latin. And then this is his letter to the Pope as a reply to the commission. And now we know this, right? Genesis starting with in the beginning with a large letter I, with the 6 days of the creation represented inside the eye. What will be missing from this, which is a loss, I would say, is when you get to the New Testament. This is the Maccabees. Yes. Or is it Matthew? Yes. So when you get to the New Testament,
Go further back.
no, this is it. This is it. When you get to the New Testament, you have the prologues, the introductions by Jerome. What you don't have, because this is for the industry, for the market, you don't have the comparative tables anymore, and you don't have the author's portrait, which would have raised the costs heavily. So it is very nicely and beautifully illuminated, but in a tiny way, in a sparing way, should I say that in a Tesco value? No, that's not that bad. But it's a much lower scale, so you have everything from here, except for the author's portraits and the comparative tables. And this is the Bible, the format of the Bible, which will be taken up by the printers in the 15th century in this. And this will be our closing item. So if you see, this is a facsimile of the first ever printed Bible by Gutenberg in Mainz. What was the year? 1455? Something like this. But just to highlight how it begins. Here begins the letter of Saint Jerome to Paulinus about the translation of the entire Bible into Latin. This is a large F. My beloved brother Ambrosius, I'm taking this task. And then this is the prologue of Jerome for the 5 books of Moses, his translation, justifying his translation. And here, the beginning of Bereshit, which is Genesis, the book itself with a large I. So it is this tradition. So it's this, the Alcuin Bible, consisting only of Jerome's translations and his prologues, which Alcuin himself applied as preliminary stuff for the Bible to make it entirely Jerome and only of his. And then this was sort of taken in a miniature version in the Paris Bible, and this is what was printed. And the printed version basically kept everything from the old early medieval structure and layout of the book, which, as we have seen, was based on and derived from the classical tradition of Homer and everything else. And this is now a new story, the printed Bible. That will be another class. But this is how we end, and this is the beginning, starting point for this. So basically, we completed the circle, and yeah, thanks to your patience with all this, we came from the Hebrew Torah scroll to this, and sort of ultimately to this as well. Great.
Bravo!